Hello listeners and viewers, welcome to Kaduna State Ministry of Education Radio and TV e-learning program designed for our SS3 and other students staying at home due to the coronavirus pandemic. The present administration under the able leadership of His Excellency, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, is positioned as always to ensure that under his leadership, our students are not left behind in all areas of human endeavors, especially education. Kaduna State is the center of learning. Therefore, we want to ensure that our students excel in their forthcoming examinations and beyond. Students and other learners at home are given this opportunity in order to continue learning, as education is a continuous process. Different subjects will be taught in this program to assist students to perform excellently in the forthcoming Senior School Certificate examination being conducted by NECO and WAEC as soon as schools reopen. Teachers making presentations will always provide their names and phone numbers during each presentation, and they can be contacted for questions, further explanations, and/or clarifications. The following numbers and contacts can also be reached for expression of any concern or observation: 090-865-00545 or 080-383-62072. Our website is www.education.kdsg.gov.ng. Our email education@kdsg.gov.ng or education.kdsg@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Our Twitter handle @Kaduna_MOE. Or our Facebook page, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Stay safe, stay at home, and learn well. Thank you, happy listening, and happy viewing.
Well, students, welcome to Radio Television e-learning. The subject for today is geography, and the topic is settlement, but the subtopic is rural and urban settlement. Rural and urban settlement. First of all, students, let's define what is settlement. Settlement can be defined as a place where people live, or a group of buildings with people living in them, and they carry out their social and economic activities. Settlement can have the following attributes. In every settlement, it has the following attributes. One, settlement has site or location. What do you understand by the word site or location? The site of any settlement could be situated on the mountain top or on the flat frame, on the flat surface. It depends on where the settlement is situated, and that we add to the value of that settlement. Two, the size of the settlement. Some settlements are small, while some are very large. It is very common with all rural settlements where the settlement is small, but in urban area, most of the settlements there are large. Three, people. The people in the settlement could be many, and their population could be high, sometimes their population could be low. And it all depends. In rural settlement, the population is small, whereby they know themselves, they know each other in that area. And that kind of settlement can be homogeneous. In urban settlement, the settlement is large, and that kind of settlement could be heterogeneous. Four, buildings. The kind of buildings in the settlement can either be linear or dispersed settlement. Either linear, dispersed, or it can be nucleated settlement. 5, paths and roads. Some of these settlements, particularly in rural area, they are normally characterized with paths, footpaths. And in major settlement like urban settlement, you find the main road where you have big roads are very common there. Now, 6, social economic activities. Now in urban settlement, it is either primary, it is either secondary or tertiary kind of activities that is going on there. While in rural settlement, you find the kind of primary activities like agriculture, hunting, farming, or you find things like fishing. It's very common with that kind of settlement. And these settlements differ from one settlement, the attribute different from one settlement to another. They are not the same. So let's go further and see. Now look at some of the settlement pattern. You can see linear settlement where the roads, there are buildings along the roads, either riverside. Look at nucleated kind of settlement where buildings cluster together. This one is kind of nucleated settlement. Look at dispersed settlement, for instance, where you see buildings are scattered all over. You see buildings, and most of the buildings are apart, with some kilometers apart, and linked by footpaths. That kind of settlement. That is known as dispersed settlement. We have 3 types of settlement. Now, types of settlement. Settlements are broadly divided into 2, namely rural and urban settlements. Rural and urban settlements. They are divided into 2. Now, let's look at rural settlement. Under rural settlement, we have homestead, farmstead, hamlet, and villages. Under urban settlement, we have towns, city, megalopolis, and we have conurbation. These are the type of settlement we have in each settlement. Let's briefly define what is this rural settlement. This is relatively small settlement with 1 or 2 buildings, with people living in them. It consists of either homestead, farmstead, hamlet, and village. The people living in rural settlement are always engaged in primary activities such as hunting, farming, mining, and fishing. And now let's quickly look at types of rural settlement. 1, we have homestead. Now, this is one compound occupied by one family. It is separated by farmland and bushes. It is separated by farmland and bushes. Each compound may be some kilometer apart and it can be linked each with footpaths. Only footpath can link some of the settlement because it is kind of dispersed kind of settlement. Social activities in this kind of settlement are either we have very little or no social activities at all. Now look, number 2, look at farmstead. It is a settlement that consists of 2 or more homesteads. It is dispersed kind of settlement where you find buildings scattered all over. The settlement is separated by farmlands. The population is just about 50, the kind of people living there. And their primary activities is normally farming, hunting, and fishing. That is what is there. Now, hamlet is another form of rural kind of settlement. It is made of either dispersed settlement or nucleated settlement. It can even be linear kind of settlement. As I told you, students, linear or dispersed kind of settlement, I show you on the diagram, where you have different kind of settlement. This one is common in linear type of settlement. It may have shop or schools, depending on how large the hamlet is. The population could be up to about 100 people or more than. The primary activities are normally fishing and hunting. That is the primary activities. Now, the fourth one is village. This is a rural settlement that consists of many homesteads. The settlement may be up to several thousands. The inhabitants are directly engaged in primary activities. And some villages have craft or village industries where they have handcraft industries and so on. They have services centers, example, schools, health centers are there, post office, marketplaces. The population there are homogeneous. We are homogeneous in the sense that they know themselves, they have the same common culture, and they even have the same language if possible. They have the same language, they have the same cultural background. That is homogeneous. Okay? Now, let's quickly look at the characteristics of rural settlement. What I mean by characteristics, how do you know that this one is a rural kind of settlement? So let's look at some of the characteristics. They are listed here below. Rural settlements are relatively small area with socially homogeneous people that know one another very well. They know themselves. They have the same cultural background. 2, the settlement may be nucleated or dispersed or linear, depending on the kind of settlement. It may be a village, hamlet, farmland, or homestead. 3, the inhabitant may be people with the same cultural background or the same language. The same cultural background or the same language. Now let's talk about urban settlement. In urban settlement, it is relatively large and densely populated area. Urban settlement have people with different cultural background and different languages. That is heterogeneous in nature, where you have people with different cultural background. Now let's quickly, where you have people with different cultural background and different languages. Types of urban settlement. There are 4 main types of urban settlement, and these are town, city, megapolis, and conurbation. Now let's quickly look at what do you understand by this word town. What is a town? This is a large nucleated settlement. A town is a large nucleated settlement of several villages. It has thousands of people. For example, in Nigeria, for instance, any settlement with more than 5,000 people could be called or could be regarded as what? As a town. Could be regarded as a town. 2, city. This is a large nucleated settlement made up of 2 or more large towns with greater number of people and services. In cities, in a city, 1 or more towns may combine to function as one. 1 or more towns may come together and function as one. It may have population of over 500,000. That is in a town. People may have about 500,000 people, as the case of Ibadan or Kano or Benin City. That is that to town. Now, number 3, let's look at what is this megapolis. Megapolis, this is one of the largest type of urban settlement, made up of large cities with several millions of people. For example, Lagos. Lagos is megapolis. It's a very large town with many people, with several, up to 1 million people in a particular place. Now, the fourth one could be conurbation. Conurbation, this is made up of several towns joined together. Several towns that join together, but each of the towns still remains at its identity. For example, if you look at Kaduna North and Kaduna South. Kaduna North is there, Kaduna South is there, but all of them function as one. They function as one individually, but they are very big places together. So that is that. Now, let's look at some of the characteristics of urban center. How do you know that an urban center, this is an urban center, student? Let's look at some of the characteristics. Some of the characteristics, an urban settlement are relatively large and densely populated. I made mention of Lagos. I made mention of places like Kano. 2, they are usually nucleated or compact, where you see houses come together. Different houses are compact together, nucleated kind of settlement. 3, they have heterogeneous population. Heterogeneous population in the sense that different cultural background are there, right? Population, that is heterogeneous population. That is, they have people with different cultural background and different language. 4, the inhabitants are mainly involved in secondary and tertiary activities, such as manufacturing and constructions. That is what they are meant for. Okay? Let's quickly. Okay. So, students, as I earlier said, I defined what settlement is. I said settlement is a place where people live, and it's a place or a group of buildings where people live together and carry out their different social and economic activities. Then I said in every settlement, for example, student, I said in every settlement has an attribute. And I named the attribute. I said site, location. I said size of the settlement. I said the people, the kind of people that live there. Then I said the buildings. Are they nucleated? Are they dispersed? Then I say, if you look at the roads, footpaths, which is common in the villages, then I made mention of the social economic center. If it is in rural area, you find places like, agricultural center and hunting in rural area. But in urban area, they have tertiary and other kind of things go on there. So if you look at the pattern of settlement, I told you so that you will not get confused, students. Look at it. We have what is known as linear type of settlement, where the settlement is along the roads or riverside, along the river. We have nucleated, where I told you is very common in big cities, where you find buildings come together. Buildings, you find buildings. All these things indicate buildings coming together. Places like Kano, when you go to places like Lagos, Ibadan, are very common like that. Now I said dispersed kind of settlement. This kind of dispersed kind of settlement is common with rural area, villages. It's very common there, where you see the main road, you find buildings are scattered along the bushes and so on. That is that. So I told you again, types of settlement. I said we have 2 types of settlement. We have the urban and we have the rural. Under the rural settlement, we have homestead and we have farmstead, we have hamlet and we have village. Under the urban settlement, we have town, we have city, we have megapolis, and we have conurbation. Under this rural settlement, I define what rural settlement. I say it is relatively small, where you have 1 or more buildings living in them, and it consists of homestead, farmstead, and hamlet and village. The people living in rural area are normally, they engage in all these kind of primary activities. And I told you, these are the things I said. Homestand, I told you, is a common compound occupied by one kind of family, where they are separated by farmlands and bushes. And the other one, I said we have farmstead. I said it's a settlement that consists of 2 or more homesteads. And then I said it is a dispersed kind of settlement where the buildings are scattered. They are only linked with footpaths. Okay? Then I said the settlement is separated by farmlands. I said the population, very small. There are not more than 50 people in terms of population. Okay? Then I said hamlet, it is made up of dispersed or nucleated. It can be linear. It depends on the kind of settlement, right? It is bigger than homestand, is bigger than farmstead, right? So if you look at it, is in hamlet, you can have schools or shops, right? Population could be up to about 100 people in terms of population. The primary activities there is not more than, the primary activities is farming, fishing, and hunting. And agricultural activities goes on there, right? So if you look at it, village, under this rural, we have the village. The village consists of many homesteads. The settlement may be up to several thousands of people living together. The inhabitants are directly engaged in primary activities. Some villages are directly involved. Some villages have craft or village where they make different kind of artifacts and they make different kind of things in the village, right? So they have services, social services like post office, they have health centers and so on. The population there in village, I told you, they are homogeneous. Homogeneous in the sense that they have the same cultural background, okay? That is that. I told you about the characteristics of village, of rural settlement. I said rural settlements are relatively what? Small, socially homogeneous people that they know themselves, they know each other there. The settlement may be nucleated or dispersed depending on the size of the settlement, right? The inhabitants there may be people with the same cultural background. In most cases, there are people with the same cultural background. Okay, that is what some of the characteristics of a rural settlement is. In urban, if you look at the urban very carefully, you will discover that urban settlement is relatively large and the population is dense. It's very densely populated. The urban settlements have people with different cultural backgrounds. That is heterogeneous. The people live differently. They have different religion. They have different cultural background. That is that with urban settlement. Urban settlement. Now, I told you that under urban settlement, we have 4 types of urban settlements. We have town, city, megapolis, and we have conurbation. Under this, we see what town is. Town is nucleated, large settlements with several villages that comes together as one. For example, in Nigeria, if you want to say, in Nigeria, where a town where people are more than 5,000, about 5,000, the place is regarded as a town. It's no longer called a village. Okay? And now, if you look at a city is a large nucleated settlement made of 2 or more towns come together. Okay? The people, they have social services. In city, more towns may be combined to function as one. You have 2 towns come together and function as one. This one is common, where you have, for example, if you look at Benin City, if you look at Ibadan is a city. It's a very large place where different towns come together. Kano City is another one that comes together. Now look at megapolis. This is a large type of urban settlement. One of the largest is the largest type of urban settlement made up of large city with several millions of people. For example, when you look at Lagos, Lagos is one good example. Look at number 4. Let's look at conurbation. This is made of several towns that join together, but each town still remain at its identity and function. They have their own identity. For example, Kaduna North, Kaduna South. They come together. They are big towns, but they come together. But all of them are operating in different entity like that. So let's quickly look at some of the characteristics of urban settlement. Urban settlements are relatively large, as I said, and densely populated. Now, students, let's quickly look at some of the assignments you will take home and do. 1, what do you understand by settlement? What do you understand by settlement? 2, list and explain 2 categories of settlement. 2 categories. List and explain 2 categories of settlements. 3, differentiate between rural and urban settlements. Differentiate between rural and urban settlements. What do you understand by settlement? What do you understand by settlement? 2, list and explain 2 categories of settlement. 3, differentiate between rural and urban settlement. Differentiate between rural and urban settlements. My name is KAMAL ADAMU GARBA with the number of 080-3861-9143. My name remains KAMAL ADAMU GARBA with 080-3861-9143. Stay at home, stay safe, and keep learning. Thank you.